After my scam hard drive video, one of my many subscribers, 5, reached out to me and asked if I could do a review on some cheap thumb drives he saw on AliExpress. So I bought them and let's review them. Okay, here they are. I bought the 64 gig, the 128 gig, and the 256 gig, and they are super cheap. I think it was $5, $10, and $15 roughly. I mean, they're really not expensive at all. I haven't used them yet. I have no idea if they work at all or not. So let's open them up and give that a bit of a go. We'll start with the 64 gig. There. Okay, so in the packet we get the little thumb drive. It is tiny and looks like it is a keyring attachment to go on it. So I guess that just clips onto there. That is, okay. And then that can go into keyring. Actually, the keyring's pretty much bigger than the drive itself. I personally wouldn't do that. That's just going to get knocked about with keys, and if you actually had anything important on there, that's going to get damaged. I tend to, with something that size, stick it in my wallet. It seems to be a bit safer that way. So I'm going to take that off because I'd never used that. All right, so I'll get the others out and then we'll test them. Okay, so there we have them, 3 little thumb drives, and there's my thumb for comparison. So they are very small. I mean, that's not too exciting. They are pretty small these days anyway. Let's just plug it in and copy some files over. It's actually quite hard to get enough files to fill up a 256 gig, and I hope it doesn't copy too slowly because it's going to take forever to do it. But let's give it a go and make sure that they can actually hold the size that they say they can hold, which is the exact problem with the 4 terabyte drives. They didn't do that at all. All right, I've got 3 USB ports on my laptop, so I've plugged them all in, and let's see what we get. Okay, we have drive D, E, and F. That should be the 64, the 128, and the 256 in that order. It doesn't actually say, so let's have a look. Properties. Okay, 58.5 gig. Okay, that doesn't mean anything at this stage, as we know from the scam drives. They can report the size. Yeah, that's the 128. And that is obviously the 256, 249 gig. So so far, that's looking okay. Let's copy some files. This is my entire Premiere Pro directory, which has 73 gig. Okay, so that's going to be too many to copy onto the 64 gig. I'm pretty confident that the 64 will actually work. Okay, 53 gig. All right, let's do it. Copy. How long is this going to take? 2 hours. Okay, wow, one thing that these drives are not is fast. That's going to take about 2 hours for the 64 gig, so that's 4 hours for the 128 and 8 hours for the 256 gig. Now, I can't wait that long. That's going to be one very long, boring video. So I'm going to have to copy the files over, do some testing, and then finish this video off, probably at home. So we'll come back and see if they work. I'm a bit skeptical about the 256 gig. That's the one where I think that might be a fake and might not actually hold all that data, because for $15, that was pretty cheap. But if it works, that's good. You just want to be aware that if you're going to copy 256 gig over, that's going to take some time.
Hey Mom, could I sit down somewhere? This is so boring. I hate this thing.
Well, that took a while. 4 months to copy those files across. Melbourne, 2 lockdowns. I couldn't get back to the studio. I didn't want to finish the video at home. And now we're in summer with bright sunshine outside, so everything looks different, but we're here. And I've done what I said I'd do. I copied 64 gig worth of files across to the 64 gig drive. I then doubled that and copied 128 across to the 128 and doubled that again and copied the 256 across to the 256 drive. And so I'll show you here what we have. This is Windows showing the 3 drives. Unfortunately, they're named backwards, D, F, E in size order. So 64 gig roughly has been copied across to D drive, and I can look at all my videos here. We can go to FlibbleTech, open up the 4 terabyte hard drive scam and play the video, and it works. So that's all cool. And as far as I could have checked, all the files worked on the 64 gig drive. Now, if I go across to the 128 gig drive where I did it twice, so I'm going to folder number 1 and open up FlibbleTech, 4 terabyte hard drive scam, and try to play that video. It works, which is good. So far so good. Now I go to folder 2 where it says just a duplicate of it, and to Flibble Tech and Bop. And that's the problem. All the folders in 2 are actually empty. Doesn't matter which one you pick, they're all empty. Even though Windows says that the drive is almost full, only 17 gig out of the 128 gig free, but when you go into that second folder, there's nothing in there. And it's the same problem with the 256 gig drive. I go to folder 1, Flibble Tech, 4 terabyte hard drive scam, run the video, and it works. Good. But if I go into number 2, Flibble Tech, empty. Number 3, Flibble Tech, empty. And big surprise, number 4, Flibble Tech, empty. So that's what happens. And the really annoying part about it is those files aren't there, but it took the full 8 hours to copy the data across. So it was just sitting there, not writing to the drive because the drive was actually already full, but took the full amount of time and the files aren't there. So once again, these drives are a scam, except for the 64 gig. So the 64 gig is a 64 gig drive. You can fill it with 64 gig worth of data. The 128 is also a 64 gig drive with the controller that says to Windows, this is 128 gig. So Windows starts writing to it. It can't because there's no space. And so you don't actually get that data. Although the good thing with these drives is it doesn't corrupt your files. So the original files that you copy stay, and you just can't keep copying past the 64 gig. Whereas the other drives I had, they actually corrupted the original files that you would copy. So you'd lose everything. And then again, the 256 gig drive is really only a 64 gig drive with a controller telling Windows it's 256 gig. You copy your files, you get the first 64 gig, and then you don't get anything else. So I don't recommend buying these drives. They're a waste of time and money, and particularly they are a waste of time. The 64 gig took over 2 hours to fill. You're just not going to sit around waiting, and then it would take you the same amount of time to take the data off again. It's just not a good use of time, especially when you can get a very cheap 64 gig USB 3 drive, which will be way faster, or USB 3.1. And if you do want to only copy a few hundred meg, just get a really small, say 500 meg USB key. They'll be way cheaper, way faster, and you can rely on your files actually being there. So to answer your question, loyal subscriber, these are terrible. Don't buy them. Game over, boys.